All right, Burnsville Psych. Today we're going to be talking about language development. When we're talking about developmental psychology, we can talk about physical development and how um, young people change over time and how they um, develop in terms of their muscles and motor skills and things like that. Second piece that we can talk about is how they develop language. So first question is, compared with what we talked about in the last unit in terms of nature and nature, what do we already know about language development? If you're thinking about the question, one idea that might pop up or maybe should pop up is the idea that it's not nature or nurture, but it's nature and nurture. So when we're talking about language development, one of the ideas that we'll talk about is windows of opportunity. The idea that we are wired to learn language, but unless we do something with that wiring, we will not develop language. And that seems to make sense. We call that in school learning. Um, Second question that pops up here after the whole computer dies. Second question that pops up is, compared to animals, what makes us different? How are we similar? This is a picture of Coco the gorilla that learned sign language. We'll talk about that in class. Compared to Coco, what can we do that she can't? How are we different from Coco? So first thing we need to understand is the 3 steps to learning a language, and this is any kind of language. First thing we do is to make signs, and in this sense, the signs that we're making could be signs that you use your hands to make, but they also could be uh, audible signs or sounds that we use uh, with our mouths. We're making some kind of sign that represents some idea or something. The next step is to give those signs or words meaning so that we agree when I'm pointing to a computer, we both call it by the same name. The third piece says to learn correct grammar. And in the sense of language development, we're not talking about grammar in the sense of semicolons or when to indent and things like that. We are talking in terms of how we arrange words, the order that we put them in. For example, when I start sentences with certain words, who, what, why, where, when, that's a signal that a question is on the way. That is the kind of grammar that we need to learn. And if you listen to little kids talk, one of the things that makes them fun to hang out with is that they say some pretty funny things because they're still learning these rules. They will make obvious mistakes because they don't yet know the grammar. So when we look at how language develops over time, newborns, it says here, are very reflexive in their communication. So anybody that is finished with their development timeline should not be surprised. Most of what newborns are doing is reflexive. They don't do a whole lot that's not built in and pre-wired. So all of their communication is a reflex. So certain kinds of crying, certain kinds of sounds that they're making, and those sounds develop over time. It says the first couple of months they start making other kinds of noises. Basically, those sounds are doing the same things that we use language to do, to understand what other people are saying and to be understood by other people. So when a baby cries, that's a signal that, hey, I need something. And it could be a bottle, or it could be a new diaper, or it could be whatever. But that is definitely a signal. Later in the first year of life, kids are starting to imitate the speech that they hear around them. And they start making sounds that sound like the things that they are hearing. What happens when a baby stumbles across some word that sounds like a word that we want them to understand? Well, if it's something like mama or dada, suddenly the parents get very excited, and they get excited and reinforce that behavior. So the kid says, "Oh, this is a good one. I'm going to have to repeat that again." And that's the reward that they get. That's the reinforcement. So over the first year then, babies are starting to move towards this this first piece, making signs, making those sounds that we understand. The second year of life, they are starting to use sounds as symbols and are starting to connect the meaning of those words. So that's step 2. It says by the age of 2, kids have a vocabulary of over 50 words. And the shocking part about this is that sometimes we assume because kids are not able to speak that they don't know any language. And for me, the shock was I started pointing at objects in our house, and my daughter knew the objects. She couldn't say the words yet, but if I said, "Where's the ball?" she would point at it. Or if I said, "Where is the, uh, you know, cat?" she could point at the cat. She couldn't say those words yet, but she knew them. So she was developing vocabulary, which is, by the way, one of the things that is going to be essential here. The way we learn language is by hearing it. So what should you do with babies and young children? Speak to them. Use language. Talk to them. Use complicated language or complex language because that's how they learn it. If you speak like a baby does and give them the goo goo gaga talk, they're not going to learn language. Um, Key concept right here, telegraphic speech. By the end of age 2, um, children start combining some of the words that they know into very short little sentences. This is called telegraphic speech, and it's interesting because generally you understand what they're saying even though the grammar is all wrong. So if we go back, they're still working on learning the grammar and haven't come close to learning all of those rules, but they do start to understand that, oh, people are stringing these words together into statements. So mommy fall down or me do it, those are good mistakes because you understand, oh, they're starting to figure this language thing out. A kid that says something like daddy goed yesterday actually is a great example of learning that's happening because they understand that when you go to past tense you have to change the verb. And that's actually a great sign if you're a parent because you're seeing the kid learning these rules. 18 months to 5 years of age, children are adding 5 to 10 words to their vocabulary every day. By 4 or 5 years old, they, if they have been in language-rich environments, have several thousands of words in their vocabulary. So again, the best thing you can do for young kids is to expose them to lots of vocabulary. They are like little sponges and are picking up all the language that they hear. This page shows you that development of vocabulary over time. By the age of 10, you're in the thousands of words, 30,000 words. College sophomores up to 120,000 words. Um, what we're finding out in terms of language development is that the more you learn, the more vocabulary you know. This is why reading is important. This is why pushing yourself to find texts that are outside of what you already know is useful because it's one way to learn language. All right, so when we take a peek at the overall timeline, what we're finding here is that um, let's do this. Ooh, that's exciting. Over time, kids are developing more and more language. So if we summarize, um, the first year of life, we could call that pre-linguistic sounds, meaning they're not making words yet, but it's sounds. Okay, and we talked about how that is reflexive. When we get to 12 to 18 months, babies are starting to use sounds as symbols so they understand that dada is that guy that keeps coming home and takes care of them, and they understand that ball is that round thing that's fun to play with. Between 18 and 24 months is when telegraphic speech is being developed. That is those short 2 and 3 word combinations that show the beginning of an awareness of some of that grammar. From age 2 to 3, they are working on the grammar and developing more and more awareness of some of those rules. And then from 4 on up, it says is adult-like speech. Obviously, you know, a 10-year-old is going to have much better language than a 4-year-old, but over time, we're just adding to what we already know. I think we're going to end it there. On this page, when we get to class, we will talk about Cocoa and we'll get into some of that and do some review. So thanks for tuning in.